What's up, guys? So, yeah, we're doing part four right now. Basically, to let you know some of the footage that has kind of reemerged on Twitter from the Ariel Helwani show. He does that MMA live show and he interviews fighters, coaches, and MMA personalities. So I have the video here. It's a 2-minute video of him talking to James Krause, probably from either August or September, and it's quite damning. And now, all of those who are following this story, I feel it's the most interesting story in MMA right now because it covers multiple areas of the sport that literally are going to have consequences moving forward. Areas such as betting on fighters, throwing fights, canceling, the cancel culture, the control and pull that Dana White has over the complete narrative of the UFC. This is something that doesn't get spoken about a lot. For instance, with Dana White, it's his business, it's his company. He won't allow outside reporters. If you don't have a pass that is approved by the UFC brass, you're not allowed to go to the weigh-ins. You're not allowed to go to the weigh-ins as media, and you're definitely not allowed to ask questions. And this is why when you see either pre-fight interviews or post-fight interviews from the press, you never really see challenging questions or topics brought up. And that's the way Dana controls that narrative around the sport. He in the past, this is why guys like Ariel Helwani has been blacklisted from the sport. Ariel's an actual journalist. He does his research. He's not just going to sit there and ask questions and basically shoulder pat the UFC and their fighters. If there's something controversial like weight cuts, fighter pay, fill in the blanks, gambling, he's going to bring it up. But Dana does his best to silence any opposing sort of conversations other than the narrative that he has created. So with that in mind, that's why this topic with James Krause is so intriguing. You know, before I heard about this case, Krause was just a mediocre fighter who coached at kind of, I don't want to call Glory MMA a mediocre gym, but it's not one. It's not your American Top Team. It's not your Jacksons. It's not your Sanford MMA. But definitely not what Faraz Sahabi's doing up in Canada. But it was kind of an outlet in the Midwest for up and coming fighters. He is kind of responsible for a lot of fighters who want to get their foot in the door. He has recently retired in August, so he could focus more on the coaching aspect and building Glory into a powerhouse. And there is talent there. Up until Brandon Moreno's last few fights, all of the fighters that he had at Glory were unranked, for the most part, unranked fighters. And it's well documented that Krause was with Moreno. I think it was the last 2 fight camps. So the reason why that's relevant, you'll hear in a second. I do have footage from that Helwani interview. It was kind of like I don't even want to call it an interview. The guys will call up Helwani and Helwani will live stream it. And that's what this is from. And this specific topic is all about Krause gambling on the sport. Now, this interview happened before the major announcement a month ago and definitely before the Derek Minner fight. And you'll really get to see what sort of guy Krause is, at least how he reveres gambling on the sport. I found it shocking. I'm not trying to patronize, and I'm definitely not trying to kick somebody when they're down. But when you look at a head coach from a top gym with professional fighters who are fighting under the brand the UFC, and you hear how cavalier Krause is about the gambling side of things, it was a bit shocking to me, only because it's been in our lifetime that we have seen in other sports the downfall of athletes and their brands when it comes to gambling. The big one is obviously Pete Rose and not being in the Hall of Fame. That's a whole nother controversial subject. Also, if you remember when all the drama happened with Michael Jordan, it came out a lot that people were trying to create these conspiracy theories. Jordan, it's well documented his gambling habits. Now, not to say Jordan ever was accused of gambling on his own team, but Rose was. So that's not the same. We're just going to use the word gambling as the parallels here. Tiger Woods has been known. Anybody who's a high-level performer, it's kind of like a rush to gamble. Now, Krause wasn't We don't know if he was gambling on his own fights. He was definitely gambling on his fighters. There was a tweet that came out 5 days ago. The 1% Club Discord. Now, for all of you, those who aren't in the know, Discord is a social media platform. Krause had a gambling show on that, and it would be by donation. So his show was called the 1% Show, and he would give you his fight picks, and then you would pay a subscription fee. And he's going to get into that. Helwani is going to ask him about that. So think about this for a second. He has an outside streaming income, stream of income that is based around his work with the UFC. I'm sure the UFC, when they found out about this, did not like that, especially when it had to do with performances and outcomes. Now, that Discord server, along with the YouTube channel, got taken down, been deleted. You'd have to think it was from Krause. If you watched part 3, you would have heard me talk about how Krause hasn't posted, tweeted on any of his social sites going on about 5 weeks now. What I'm going to do now is play that video. Hopefully YouTube doesn't take this down.
How often do you
So this is, I guess I'll just hold the phone. I've never played a video while live streaming. We'll see if this works. Helwani's going to start off with, how often do you gamble? And I'm just going to let it play.
Interested in the betting side of things, like how often do you partake in this?
I bet every single card, just about every fight.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a Discord, like 2,000 members in it. We crushed it last week. We destroyed it. I take over people's accounts and play for them. Like I post the losses for myself on some accounts. Like I do pretty well. I make more money gambling on MMA than I do anything else.
Come on, more than even coaching?
Oh God, I don't make shit on coaching.
Really?
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely not. Like, I mean, if you're talking about time,
yeah.
No, like if I go out on a Wednesday,
that's true.
I go out on a Wednesday to Sunday. That's the most, you know what I mean. I make 10% of a guy that majority. I mean, if we're not talking about Brandon Moreno, like
right.
Most of my guys are entry level guys making 12, 14, 14. You know, I have some guys making in the 20s, but even at that, like you get 10% of 20 grand is $2,000. I'm on the road every weekend, right. Wednesday to Sunday. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't. No, to answer your question, no, it's not even close. Not even close.
And just curious, like the Moreno fight, like fights that you're involved in, will you bet on those too?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
yeah.
Did you bet on Brandon?
Of course.
Overall, how'd you do Saturday?
We crushed it, man. Crushed it. I think I went like 15-2, and the 2 losses, one was a plus 900 underdog, and the other one was a hedge on another play we won.
Damn, look at you. And when you say we, what do you mean by we? The Discord?
The Discord, the group, the group we're in. I post the plays and people, you know.
And do people pay you for this? For the picks?
Yep.
Wow, and that's lucrative.
Yep.
Look at you.
But it does. But I mean, they make way more. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like we have a couple different entry level positions. Like we have a $50 a month, and I have a $2,000 a month. But they make way more than, you know, they pay. That's for sure.
And just if someone wanted to join this, how can they sign up for this?
Okay, so that's crazy. When you hear him so nonchalant talk about, did you gamble? Did you bet on the Moreno fight? He cornered that fight. The reason why that's crazy is that's a world title fight. And for him to see that for him to say it so casually and not act as if that's an issue, that's shocking. Now, isn't that James's fault? I don't want to say that's his fault. I think this is an opportunity. This is where we're seeing the sport of MMA evolve, how far it's come. And I know the last thing Dana wants to do is have a narrative that's being floated around that fights are being thrown. Because here's another thing that has bothered me lately. Where is the line drawn then between the WWE and then the UFC? Because there's already being parallels when you look at some of the cringe marketing that fighters feel like they're obligated to do to get big fights. Think Colby, think Jorge, think Aljamain, think Sugar Sean. And that, I don't like that side of martial arts, but if they feel they have to do that, which they're doing to get big fights, that's what the WWE does. You know, it's called cutting a goddamn promo. Think 90s, think Hulk Hogan, Big Boss Man, Ultimate Warrior, Ric Flair, those promos, that's what's happening. Now, where does that line get drawn when you start hearing stories like this of coaches and gyms betting on their fighters, betting on fights, having profiles and businesses making money on their bets, where's the line drawn then with fights being thrown? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you haven't watched parts 1, 2, and 3, they're connected to the Ungoogleable MMA playlist on this page. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for supporting.